Hi, how you doing? You alright? Cool. So today we're going to be talking about Mastodon. This one is long overdue. That any video from me is probably long overdue. But I suppose I think it can only be overdue if you're actually waiting for it in the first place, which, nobody is. So there you go. But yeah, Mastodon. How do I feel about Mastodon? Well, if it wasn't for the Smiths, they possibly would be my favourite band of all time. They're a band that really have had a significant influence on the way I listen to music and the way that I generally kind of go about making music in my little band, and just how I kind of think about art generally. They are a band that's been that significant to me and to many others, I'm sure. Probably one of the most prominent and important bands of the last 10 to 15 years in the world of rock and metal, and also one of the most successful. A band that combines massive, just gargantuan, sludgy riffs with mind-bending, progressive picked passages, just really kind of abrasive, nasty vocals and huge melodic vocals of late, and a band that just is not afraid to really kind of go out on a concept, a band that just really pretty much plays to its own tune, and one that's had a real influence on a lot of the bands that have came in their wake that they've gone at success. I'm looking at Baroness and Red Fang, just among others, bands that like to combine the almost kind of classic riff-based approach with progressive elements, and they've really kind of set a template for making challenging music and getting success from it. So yeah, like Mastodon. So how do I feel about this new Mastodon album? Well, to many people, a lot of people have, in the kind of more, I suppose, elitist, stupid, small-minded community that forms an aspect of metal, the vocal minority, if you like, they've pretty much checked out on Mastodon after The Hunter, when Mastodon started doing a lot more clean vocals, stripping it back, and making, kind of hard rock songs, but albeit with the same kind of musical eccentricities and technical prowess that we've come to expect from them previously. And all the normal boring stuff about, Mastodon have sold out and all this kind of crap has been thrown at them for a while now. A lot of people don't like the clean vocals. A lot of people don't like the more pop sensibility of songs like The Motherlode and High Road and Curl of the Burl. And I just think it's just boring. Are we not beyond this in metal now? I can't think of any other genre that just completely does not want its best bands to succeed, and just it seems to eat itself. It seems to actually just want to actively sabotage itself just because it doesn't like the direction something's taken. If it falls out this tiny narrow parameter and if it's different, it makes people feel like, oh no, other people are going to like this now. They reject it. Because I don't know why it is. I mean, maybe it's because it's the only thing that makes them, in their little unpopular idiosyncratic world, feel like they've got some kind of significance, because here's something that's really kind of niche and it's really nasty and approach it, and it's mine and you can't have it. And if other people have it, then, what have I got? I'm just some unpopular, sad, lonely fuck. Well, enough of that. I thought The Hunter was a phenomenal album. I really like Once More Around the Sun, even though I think it's perhaps their weakest effort. But that's like saying, it's the weakest of, it's the best of it's the worst of a brilliant bunch of albums. It's like, saying like, oh, Kill 'Em All's the weakest of the first 5 Metallica albums. Well, it's still fucking 10 out of 10 albums, so shut up. So yeah, I mean, they've come under a lot of fire from these idiots, and I did think, although I probably do prefer the more kind of progressive, mind-bending stuff that they were doing on Leviathan and Blood Mountain and Crack the Sky, I don't think there's anything wrong with what they've done with the last 2 albums, and if they were to pursue that direction, I'd be happy with that. But I almost thought, well, you know what, they've made their classic albums, and they're going to keep maintaining a high quality, a high watermark, and that'll be that, really. And I'm happy with that, because they still play all the fucking classic songs live. They've got more classic songs than most bands amass in a career off the basis of those first 4 albums. And, the new songs, there's plenty coming through that I really want to hear live, and it's really interesting to hear them grow as a band, even if it's slightly away from the direction that maybe loved them in the first place. Well, I am absolutely delighted to say that I'm running away because what they've done is actually add to that stellar, amazing catalogue. Those first four sacred albums now have a fifth member, and it's called Emperor of Sand. So, fuck yeah! I mean, look at that. That is beautiful. So, Emperor of Sand is a concept album, and I'm not going to go into too much detail on that because there's plenty of information out there about it. The idea of somebody lost in the desert, the idea of the death sentence given by some sultan is actually a metaphor for cancer. And, this is a very kind of emotional, personal record in the same way that Crack the Sky was. And, a lot of their records have been actually. And what they do, instead of kind of laying those emotions out and really hitting you on the nose with it, is actually they just bury it in a really kind of interesting concept. And although it's easy to kind of mock sort of fantastical lyrics and stuff about like monsters and sultans and stuff. What you're doing is actually just finding a really kind of artistic, interesting way to talk about basic, things that we can all relate to, and I don't see anything wrong with that. So conceptually, Mastodon are going from strength to strength, and they're doing what they've always done, which is talk about really kind of basic human emotions and really kind of touching things, but through really crazy, fucked up stuff. And that's called stamping your personality onto something, and there's nothing wrong with that. The music on here, probably the album I'd probably compare it to closest would be Blood Mountain, just because of that perfect balance between the riff-based approach of the early days and the more proggy sort of output that they were doing, circa Crack the Sky. And yeah, it goes toe to toe with both of those records I've just mentioned there. Opener Sultan's Curse just really hits you in the face with a crushing kind of proggy sort of approach. So the riffs are absolutely just face searing. That guitar tone, that crunch is very much back, and there's a little bit more complexity to what they're doing. And that three-pronged vocal attack is there straight away as well. So they've got one of the great things that's developed over the last couple of albums is all four members sing, but on the studio it's Bron Daler on the drums doing a lot of the vocals, Brent Hines on guitar doing the vocals, and Troy Sanders on the bass doing the vocals. And they've all got three completely different voices, which are great in their own way. So this is used to full effect here with Troy straight away coming in with that gruff kind of baritone voice that he's got, which resides somewhere between Neil Fallon from Clutch and Scott Kelly from Neurosis. A real kind of smoky tone, but he's really developed into just a fantastic rock and metal singer. And then we get Brent Hines with that really kind of distinctive nasal sort of Ozzy Osbourne voice that he's got. That doesn't sound like anybody else. And I know I've said Ozzy Osbourne there, but that's the closest thing I can kind of pull it to. But that himself, he's got that kind of whiny meow kind of thing going on. And as soon as he turns up on a track, it's him. And his voice, can get overbearing sometimes, but it's used masterfully here and sparingly. And when it is used, it's got a real impact. And then we've got Bron Daler with that soaring, clean, majestic, amazing vocal. Much more kind of high-end approach. And it's just incredible that he manages to pull these amazing high soaring notes off while playing just the most ridiculous complex drum parts of any drummer that I've seen in a long time. So Sultan's Curse straight out the gate just absolutely kills it. And one of the things that becomes apparent straight away is Brent Hines' lead guitar is just all over this thing, and it continues throughout. Particularly as the outros on songs like Clandestiny, which combines such emotional, beautiful guitar playing with some of the most heartfelt vocals, and it just really feels like a team effort. These tag team vocals and just everyone playing to their strengths. Bill Kelleher, the guitarist, as well, contributes some of his best ever riffs on here, and the playing throughout is, as you'd expect, absolutely exemplary. One of the great things about this album, though, is it goes back to actually having a much more cohesive approach. Once More Around the Sun and The Hunter were very disparate, and they were very varied albums, deliberately so. And it was nice to hear them just doing a full album of songs that they really like and just put them together to make a really nice varied album. Now this album is varied, but it's got a much more cohesive approach at the same time. So a lot of these songs stick to a similar structure, stay within a similar ballpark, and that all functions as part of creating that theme, that kind of desert theme that they're going for here. And you've got some really kind of epic moments, particularly choruses where Brian Dayler's voice is used to full effect on songs like let's have a look, well, Precious Stones, the third song, Steam Breather, which has just an amazing kind of stoner rock sort of riff that chugs along, and it's got like a really oppressive atmosphere to it. His voice just absolutely erupts out of that in the chorus, and that's got a really kind of oppressive dark tone. You really kind of getting the feeling of that suffocating feeling of a disease or an affliction, and it almost reminds me of some of the bits on Nine Inch Nails, the Fragile, um, in places on there, in that kind of claustrophobic, walls closing in sort of feeling. And just not only have you got these kind of creepy moments, these kind of dark moments, but you've got some really kind of soaring, hopeful bits in that as well. So, for example, Roots Remain, which is called Eon, the vinyl version, is again contains a really kind of soaring, majestic chorus, and has like really kind of dark bits to it. But there's a beautiful kind of moment when he's talking about how to be kind of remembered, and like death isn't the end. And that's followed again just by an absolutely stunning guitar solo, just full of passion and feeling by Brent Hinds. Yeah, and it's just every one of these songs is an absolute winner, and there's no moment where I feel like it sags. It's perfectly sequenced, and there's no real kind of dip in quality. And although I like the last two albums, there are songs that are significantly better than other songs they're next to. No such issue here. And when we get to the final song, Jaguar God, it just absolutely blows you away. Again, like Brent Hinds takes the lead vocal on the first part of it, and you wouldn't expect such a heartfelt performance from him. He's able to kind of sing in a way that's truly kind of touching, and the way that his vocals are layered, he's just like the last person you'd expect to be the one to deliver that as well. You'd really expect Brand to do that because he's got the much more kind of sweet, melodic, beautiful voice. But Brent just has this kind of woozy feeling, and then there's so much soul in his playing. But it's not just all about dark moments, not beautiful moments. There's some real triumphant riffing moments. Scorpion's Breath is just an absolute, just wall to wall face crusher. If that's even, that's a new term I'm using. Face crusher, not melter, crusher. Yeah, face crusher. It's got Scott Kelly from Neurosis making, his token appearance on a Mastodon album to great effect. So his abrasive vocals go perfectly with these kind of jarring riffs that feel like they're about to fall apart any time. Clandestiny actually is just a really good example there as well of just those earlier riffs. It really sounds like the first riff could be on Remission, that kind of jazz feel combined with the hardcore, angular, sort of discordant riff work as well. And Andromeda just, really sounds like some of the mathy hardcore stuff from the late 90s. Bands like Coalesce and Burnt by the Sun really come to mind there. So, yeah, I can't recommend this album enough. I think Mastodon are at that stage now where they're always going to have people that are trying to shit on it and say what kind of band that they should be. But this is exactly what they should be doing. Producing outstanding, moving, fantastic metal, prog, rock, whatever you want to call it, music. And just adding to a career that's just becoming a real kind of legendary career. This is a band that, if the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame actually meant anything, they've already got a stake of claim that they could be in there now. I know there's like a time lapse on when you can get in or whatever, but fuck it. This is an amazing album, a wonderful record that combines emotion with progressive virtuosity, with pure brutality, with everything that you want from a Mastodon album. So yeah, just buy it. It fucking rules. I know a lot of you bought it already, judging by those numbers. But yeah, Mastodon, killing it. See ya.